Here in Psalm 27, the sweet psalmist of Israel, David's been described. A man after God's own heart is another description for David. There's a couple other descriptions that we think of when we think of David. The little boy who slew Goliath. The man who had a fella killed so he can have his wife. The king who loved the Lord so very much and was heartbroken when his son was executed in a battle. Yeah. A lot of things happened to David that's recorded for us in 1st and 2nd Samuel. David is one of those characters that you look after and in some ways you'd like to be like him as a warrior for God. And in other ways you're like, ooh, you wouldn't want to identify him in other areas. Here's one of those areas beginning in Psalm 27 that you would like to be able to identify with David. Point number 1 is fearless trust. The character of David here as we look at Psalm 27 verses 1 through 3 is that he's absolutely fearless in his trust. He knows who God is and he knows that God is on his side, or more correctly, is that he is on the side of God and he's just not worried. Now, I don't know about you, but there have been times when I've been like David and absolutely not afraid in the least little bit. But mark it down, as life goes on, there have been times that some things have just scared the hound out of me. That's Southeastern colloquialisms. When I say scare the hound out of me. Now, look, David, like so many of us from time to time, had some legitimate reasons to fear for his life. He was on the run from old King Saul for many number of years. But here we have recorded, and we're not exactly sure when Psalm 27 was written, but just imagine for a moment. You and I live in a free country, but let's say, through no fault of our own, we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. The government comes after us, and the only thing we can do is run. Otherwise, we get thrown in jail or they kill us. It's not uncommon throughout history to have stories, to read stories, true stories, where Christians have been on the run from people that wish to do them harm, torture, and take their lives. David was no exception. But yet in the first 3 verses, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I be afraid? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I fear? There's something else here that we go forward with absolute fearless trust. It's found in verse number 2. I'll tell you a story about this particular verse. Many, many years ago when we lived in Tampa, I was helping out a preacher buddy of mine to go and preach in the jail ministry. And he preached, and he gave me the opportunity to preach from time to time, and that was all good. Well, one of the inmates there came to know Jesus. And he was a part of a gang, and he came out of the gang and got right. He got saved, he got right with God, and he began to just simply do right, live a Christian life in the jail system. Now, his gang buddies in the jail system were embarrassed. And they told him, he says, you better stop being with all this Holy Joe junk. It's embarrassing us. And they warned him several times. For life of me, I can't remember his name. So he said, no, I'm a Christian now. I got saved, and I'm not turning away from God. So they warned him several more times and, threatened his life. And then finally one day, 3 of them made their way. It was a 2-level place. They made his way up the stairs, and he saw him coming. He knew it was about to happen. So what he did, where his cell was, they most often share with 2 or 3 other people. His cell was right beside the shower, and the entrance to the shower had bars on it. So what they were going to do, they told him, he says, we're going to get you, we'll throw you in a shower, we're going to beat the hound out of you, and we're just going to say you just slipped and fell several times. So he saw them coming, got to the shower, put one arm right here around one bar, one around the other, and just held on. And while he was holding on, he really couldn't defend himself. They beat the hound out of him. I mean, they beat him. Punched him in the face, punched him in the gut, just beat him. And this goes on for a couple minutes. Well, about that, however long he could stand it, one of them, somebody had taken a shower early and the floor was wet. And one of the guys just fell. While he was just going, he just lost his balance and just fell over and hit his head really hard on a bar and started bleeding profusely. He needed stitches. Well, another guy, what but a split second after that, he fell too, hit his head. So 2 out of the 3 fellas just, boom, fall down. And I honestly, as the story goes, I can't remember if it was 3 guys or 4 guys that were just tearing the relatively new Christian up. So the guys left. They went to go to the infirmary to get looked after and cared and stitches, and they were kind of messed up pretty bad. Well, the new Christian, he had a black eye, busted nose. He was beat terribly. He drug himself over to the room, opened up his Bible, plopped it right there, and there was Psalm 27. He reads verse number 1. Of whom shall I be afraid? He gets to verse number 2. And it says there again, when the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell.